All right, so we are on. So what's new? How are you doing? You don't all have to just keep your mute button on.
Just trying to get back in the swing of things since winter break is over. So back with students on Monday. It's been a full week and just tired from, you're out of that whole routine during break and sleeping in a little bit later. So it was just kind of rough getting back in, but it's okay.
I can so relate to that. It was a nice long break, but it was yeah, it's hard coming back. The week was a hard start for me too, and then I started teaching yesterday. So I was a wake-up call for me. This is the first semester in a long time that I've had an undergrad group with a 9 a.m. class on Wednesday morning. So I was like, oh, okay, this is a whole different world than I've been used to. So a little crazy, but all good, right? All good. So just I thought it'd be kind of nice to just do kind of a round robin. I've seen some of you off and on, but I really haven't had a chance to chat with each of you since a long time ago. So I thought we'd maybe I'll kind of call you out on my screen and just kind of update. Have there been any changes in your life, in your family, in your roles? What's happened since summer of 2024 when we were together last? So Meredith, I'm sorry, you're up on the first one on my screen.
No problem. Hi. Updates. Not really too much updates. I'm still teaching social emotional learning to kindergarten through fifth. Um, I've picked up a lot more leadership type roles within my school. One of our big focuses this year is improving our PBIS system school-wide. So since I'm the leader of PBIS, that's been a lot of my focus of my meetings and stuff, and then just working with upper admin on different projects. So it's been a great transition from the internship into where I'm hoping to go next.
Awesome. Okay. Mary, you're next on my screen.
I think the only thing that changed was when we started, I was teaching kindergarten. I'm in the same building, but I taught second grade last year and again this year. So I just made the switch of grade levels within the building just because there was an opening and that was closer to my comfort zone. I loved kindergarten, but I just felt like it would be a better move to do second grade while I'm doing my master's. And it's closer to the when I had taught third grade for so long. So that's the only big change that I've had. And I'm getting ready I just applied for there are two AP positions that are opening next year in my district. One is at my current building and one is at a different primary building. And so they opened up the application process, which I took care of. And now I'm just waiting to hear back about a possible interview and trying to wait to see what happens next.
Awesome. Well, fingers crossed. Keep us in the loop. Yeah, I
Will do.
agree. I do agree that kindergarten is lovely but exhausting.
Exhausting. I wanted a nap every day and just knew I couldn't. So this was the better move for me.
Congrats, congrats. Sarah, you're next on my screen. Sarah Collins. Sorry,
I was just about to ask which one.
who's Sarah I was thinking.
Um, so changes, not really. I'm still an interventionist. But the other interventionist that was working with me, they moved her back into the classroom, and then they plucked a kindergarten teacher who's been teaching kindergarten for like 35 years, and she retires at the end of next year, and they put her in the interventionist position. And while she's a phenomenal kindergarten teacher, she had never been an interventionist before. That is not her area of expertise. And so I have had to essentially train her in everything that is involved in the position, but upper admin didn't recognize that. So they didn't like assign me as her mentor or like help me help her. So it was definitely like a learning experience for me to figure out like, oh, there's a lot that I do that isn't widely known, that a lot, a lot of people don't have training on it, different assessments that I do, progress monitoring that we do, how we structure things. So it was a lot, it's been a lot of that. And then now she unfortunately had some family issues happen. So she's on FMLA. So now there's a long-term sub. So now I'm having to do it all over again.
Oh my.
And my principal, unfortunately, her son's leukemia came back. So she's been out. Our social worker was diagnosed with breast cancer, so she's been out. Our poor building, it has been hit with just so much
Wow.
this year, and we're treading water. And our climate and culture of our building is phenomenal. So we've all banded together and we're, working closely with each other now more than ever. And then now upper admin is looking at data and seeing that our reading data for our third graders is significantly below where it should be. We're significantly below the 50th percentile in comparison to the state. So now they want to completely revamp tier one instruction. And our assistant superintendent has tapped my shoulder on how can we completely revamp tier one reading instruction. So I'm helping out with that and at the same time trying to make sure that my own position within my building doesn't go up in flames.
That sounds like there's been a lot of things going on. I hope you're documenting all of the things that you do in that training, and that you are going to do for that tier one, because those are really important things to document and make sure that you can let people know, like, these are huge leadership roles. But I think especially what you said, like training the one woman and then now having to train, a sub. That's like you really need to document it and almost put it into a handbook kind of thing
Yes.
in your spare
Um,
time.
I know, right? No, but you're right. I do need to because she retires at the end of next year. So I'm going to have another new person
Yeah,
after next year.
yeah. And if anything were to happen that you were offered a position, then at least you could be the steward of your position and leave something for the people coming behind you.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes, I will. We will get right on that.
Ellen, you're next on my screen. How are you?
Good. When I think about, so what was that? Summer of 2024, I was leaving Gabby's over at Woodland as a tech person, and I went to Grass Lake as a tech coach there. Really, that's the only change that has happened. And I like it a lot.
You like it a lot. Okay. All right. I think I noticed a little change in your hair too, though.
Yeah, I know. Yes, it's purple. It's been purple since October. Before that, it was like a magenta. I'm saying I already have the pink hair dye that I'm going to plop on top in a few weeks, and now it'll be a different color too.
Awesome. Okay. Darlene, I think you're next.
Hey, um, I not much has changed for me either. I'm doing the same things at the same place, learning a lot about what leadership should not look like. And I'm on FMLA leave myself, so that's fun. And I also just applied for a new job like Mary, so fingers crossed for all of us.
Ah, what did you apply for?
An assistant principal position at a 3K school. I'm sorry,
Oh,
3K. I keep doing that. A 3-5 school.
a 3-5 school. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, we'll keep you on our list for fingers crossed.
thank
Sarah,
you.
Sarah K.
Well, this is going to be tricky considering I just was telling my colleagues all week that I don't remember anything that happened before winter break. So I really was trying to figure out what I was working on, but it's slowly starting to come back. I am in the same position as when you last saw us all. So I'm still the related services coordinator. Just feeling more, I had just, I think in summer of 24, I was just finishing up my first year, and that was really, really difficult. So I'm feeling a bit more settled and confident in kind of my different areas that I oversee and manage. So, but just I haven't had quite as much hard times as Cersei, but I just feel like the year in general has just been rough, just from just the landscape of the world. But things for the most part are the same. My kids are the same. Just time keeps going by quickly.
Very quickly, very quickly. Tell me about it. Beth, how about you?
Well, not much has changed. I still special ed, where more more full inclusion. I work fourth and fifth grade still. I don't know. Not much. Just me.
Stability is nice these days. It's okay. Sierra, how about you?
In my personal life, I had a baby in the end of April, so he's
Oh,
8 months now.
congrats.
Thank you. Um, as far as like school life goes, still teaching health. With our lower enrollment numbers, I've also taken on a PE class and our like SAGE groups, which is like social academic instructional groups. So I do like a classroom skills group where I have four different groups Tuesday through Friday. So that's been kind of a nice change of pace. I kind of like the small group aspect because all of my like health classes are um, anywhere from 17 to 33 kids. So it's pretty nice to like just be in a group of like 4 to 6 kids. Um, and then I took on the team leader position for my department. So that's been nice. And then I also joined one of our SAC committees to rewrite our curriculum that has been in dire need of rewriting. So that's been a lot of fun too. We're in the first year of that, so we'll start piloting new stuff our third trimester, so like around like March or April, and then like fully piloting stuff at the beginning of next school year.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Lots of things. Gabriella. I know you like to be called Gabby. Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. Let's see. I wish I could say things have changed at Woodland, but they have not. I'm still in my same role, instructional coach. Back in 2024, we were down two reading specialists. So I was the only reading specialist for our building and only bilingual one. What kind of changed within our role now is that we hired two people more. So there's six coaches, but now we're not just math or just reading. We are instructional coaches. So we could do either content, any content, specials, anything, which has been an extremely hard thing for our staff, and I would even say my team of coaches to grasp on because they tend to just, I'm just going to do math. I don't know reading. Like it's not my comfort of tea. We've had a lot of, what my district does best is a lot of initiatives at the same time, and we're continuing to do that. We started letters, training, PD for everybody. Coaches and interventionists had to start basically 6 months in advance than everybody else. So I'm also doing that. And we're supposed to support and help teachers implement that. Um, New MTSS rollout that is currently being built as we go, which is wonderful. Um, New program for MTSS of progress monitoring, trying to do less assessing. And since reading recovery was taken out with our, my building is very still into reading wars a little bit, unfortunately. Though I believe they both have great practices. Even going through letters, I do see a lot of reading recovery techniques in there. They're just not calling it that. We have a lot of teachers washing their hands off things, saying, well, that's not my job. So it's very unfortunate that our climate and culture has not improved. Um, I have personally been able to say no more often because a lot was being put on my plate. And it's been good because I'm still being respected by the district leaders and their understanding of that. So I was very fortunate of that. We have new Spanish teachers every month, almost what it feels like. We're getting we have teachers now from Spain, which we always used to get, but now we have some from Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador. What else? What other? Yeah, so I'm also trying to train them while also doing mentoring teachers, new teachers and coaching. and doing leadership things. So it's been great. I will have to say that I don't think I would have gotten the experience of my internship and leadership. I wouldn't have learned what I've learned now in any other building. Unfortunately, I don't have the answers for a lot of things, but I've learned things that I wouldn't want to do. Um, and how our district does not really communicate well within administration and buildings, and we're not always on the same page. So although it's a very hard district to work in because we're constantly losing teachers. Um, I guess I've had a really good learning experience. That's a positive thing I can take out of all this.
And sometimes we learn a great deal from non-examples, right? So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, so not a lot of new things, but a lot of same things.
Well, thank you for sharing. Isabel, by now you figured out what we're doing. So we're just
Yeah.
updating on what's happened since summer 2024.
Um, the only thing that's really new is that this semester, I got a student teacher, which was like kind of weird because I'm only a fourth year teacher, but both my old principal, who was my mentor, and then he left, and now my new principal, who was my mentor, both agreed that they felt like even though I was only 4 years in and like being in this program, they saw like a leadership thing. So they gave them to me, which was really cool. Um, but that's like the only thing that's new. So it kind of helps to have somebody taking over my class while I'm in grad school. Um, Still coaching the dance team. The only thing cool is that we got moved down to 2A for our division versus 3A, which is a larger division. So we've been kind of killing it because our teams match the teams that are in the 2A division size-wise. But everything's been pretty positive so far.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I guess it's my turn. So I think since summer 2024, what have I done? I've done a lot of traveling. Done a lot of conference presentations. I had gotten a big grant. I had done a master's in character education, and then the University of Birmingham in the UK offered a grant for alumni. So I was able to I won a $25,000 grant to work on a lot of the work that I've done, in these courses with virtue literacy and practical wisdom and that kind of thing. So it last school year was hectic. I think I made 12 different trips within the academic school year to different conferences, presenting some of the research that I collect on all of you. So I published an article on that work. Dr. King and I published a book chapter that's coming out next month. And I've got a manuscript that's out for review, fingers crossed right now. Sometime last year, it kind of came official. I think maybe a year ago, October, I actually moved into the position as the program director for this program. So um, the only change with that is I got the title. I've been doing the work all along, but now I actually have the title for it. So, but it has given me some freedom to start making changes now gradually. Now that I'm kind of almost into my second year of doing that. Other than that, family-wise is still the same. I still have two kids in New York, one in LA. They all drive me crazy, but they're all good. Still married to my honey. Gonna have another milestone anniversary this weekend, so I've been married forever. Everything else is good. Everything has been going really well. But I am excited to be back with you guys. I was really looking forward to reconnecting with you. I know we have one other person joining us, and she'll be joining us next week. Have you met Deborah Algrim? Yeah, because she's kind of moved from a cohort that was before and just kind of stepped back with you guys. So she'll be with us next week. So I think what I'd like to do is just kind of give you an overview for this evening. And a little bit for the semester. I'm hoping that you've had some time to look at the syllabus because I want to kind of go through that a little bit. This is going to be kind of a unique semester. Again, this craziness of the way they start and end the 8-week terms. So this 8-week term actually ends on a Wednesday of your 8th week. So I think you could see from the syllabus that it's leaving us with a little bit of a wonky setup. Also, 2 weeks from tonight is the second annual alumni event, and of which I am one of the co-hosts. But my caveat is that I'm going to invite all of you to come to the alumni event with me. So it's going to be held at the Hotel Indigo in downtown Naperville. I will send you a link to register if you can join me. I understand if you can't, if it's geographically difficult, but it's a great event because it's all the alumni from the education department. And I know last year there was a lot of networking that took place because a lot of the alumni who've been out 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years were really working the room and meeting people coming up. There also were undergrads there that were getting ready to graduate, and they were being connected with people that were in leadership roles in different schools and whatnot. It's a really nice evening. You get free hors d'oeuvres, you get one free cocktail, and it starts, I think, at the same time as ours. I think it's at 5 o'clock. Um, so, knowing just kind of putting that all together, we end up with only 6 actual synchronous meetings because one will be taken over with the alumni event, and then one technically I can't hold class on the last week because the second 8 weeks starts that night. It's a technicality. So, but we've got some exciting things on the agenda. I know that I've moved things around a little bit because of when we have different guest speakers. But if we take a look at, the weeks coming up next week, we actually have a panel of 7 um, school leaders who actually have implemented character education in their schools. So they will be with us from 5, maybe like 5 after 5 till about 5 after 6. So whatever questions you might have about character education, implementing it in your schools, that kind of thing, I think it would be great to get some of those and have those ready. So that's one of the reasons that tonight, actually, our topic is going to be understanding character education in schools, just to kind of give some background on that. We're also going to do an ethical dilemma, as you know, we always love to do. And because it's our first week, we won't be discussing the asynchronous things this week because you should really have all of this week to do that. So what I think is if time permits, what I'd like to do is let you get into your small groups that are going to be working on the team project and give you some time to work on that towards the end of the evening. So that's kind of the way I'd like to pace it, if it's okay with you. Um, the I How many, I didn't check before class, but have all of you completed that assignment that was supposed to be completed by tonight? The ICMs, anybody still working on it? Okay, I'll be able to check on that because I'll have to shut that down this evening, so we have that for research purposes. So let's start with the syllabus. I'm going to just pull that up for a second. I think I have it handy here, or maybe not. We'll see. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So as I was kind of highlighting, we're going to meet, the first 3 weeks in a row. And it's actually, I guess it's 4 weeks from tonight, 3 weeks from tonight. Then the 26th, we're going to have the alumni event. You'll still have your asynchronous module that week. And then we will have, weeks 5, 6, and 7 will also be your typical week. There will be an asynchronous module and things that need to be done that week 8, but everything will have to be kind of wrapped up by Wednesday, the 25th. I'm just going to scroll to the assignments. So basically, we've got a situation where we've got 500 points, which is very similar to what you may have experienced with me back in 500. Participation, of course, is always important. So anytime you're going to be late or you're going to miss one of our sessions, I ask you to let me know ahead of time. I'll record the session and then I'll give you directions on how you can make up the 20 points because it's really important for you to, especially with only 6 synchronous meetings, to be here and to and make sure that you catch up on what you've missed. The recordings, I think, are helpful because they not only give you, what I've presented in terms of the main presentation, but also you get to see what happened when your colleagues were in small groups and pick up on some of the conversations that you missed in the small groups. You have one assignment due this Sunday. Again, our assignments are always due on Sunday evening, and that is the research permission form. So yay or nay, whichever way is your choice, but it needs to be submitted by Sunday. And then your first big assignment is actually due a week from Sunday. That's one of the reasons that back in, I think, early December, I think I opened the opened the Canvas course for you and sent you a notice that if you wanted to look ahead, because I thought that might be one of the assignments you might want to get a jump start on, since you have to send it out those you have to send out those surveys again to people. You have to write up that information again. Your team project is due then in week 4. Your big video is due in week 6, and then of course your showcase portfolio will be due on week 7. Do you have any questions about any of those assignments? I'm hoping you've had a chance to look at the syllabus and maybe perhaps look at our Canvas course. The Canvas course is set up the same way as it was in 500. You have the assignment resources, um, which are, I think, I think you find them helpful. I know that most students find them helpful. I'll share my screen again just to kind of highlight those. Please jump in if you've got questions, please. I'm kind of feel like I'm babbling here to things, but you have, obviously the course orientation materials, those are easy for you, anything that you need to do there. The assignment resources are all up to date. You have basically 4 major assignments. Each one has not only the assignment description, but it also has the rubric. Just as you've had before, you can see that you have the 2 tools, the dispositions and the virtue questionnaire. And then you've got samples, I've been collecting samples every semester, so you've got them all the way right up until last fall. You've got the same thing with the team project, and you'll see that there are samples of how teams have done that. Again, you've got your rubric. It's been, shortened a little bit since this is an 8-week term. You've also got the your own personal video with your vision for character education. Again, your rubric and many, many samples that you can look at as you can see how people have put those together. In terms of the showcase portfolio, I'm hoping and praying that you have been working very hard on that in every one of your classes and keeping up with that in every one of your classes. There is a checklist that's there. You can see it's for spring 2026. So you might want to download that and kind of, as you're going through the semester, make sure that you're checking it, that you've got everything in there that you need. Sometimes I think people forget that, you've got to keep working on that as you move along, and that it is a big part of the final. You can see that, the bullet points here are that in order to get your full points for this, all of your artifacts and reflections from all the previous coursework have to be in there. You have to update the homepage as you might feel needed. You have to have a current resume. This cannot be the resume you did back in summer of 2024. This has to be one that is actually focused on leadership, right? You have a minimum of 2 letters of recommendation. Those have to be current. Again, they can't be letters that somebody wrote back when you were starting the program, that kind of thing. These have to be from people who can speak to you as a leader. So, this is where you might want to talk to the people that were you worked with, whoever were your primary supports that you're building when you did your internship. It might be the person that was, one of them could be your internship supervisor, et cetera. But it's important for those 2 letters of recommendation to be uploaded. And then it goes, standard by standard here, telling you for this course, these are the ones that have to be uploaded. So the 3 main assignments for this course go in multiple places here. And so it kind of takes you through all of that. I really caution you to pay attention to that. And as we finish each of the assignments, weeks 2, 4, and 6, make sure you upload them right away. Make sure you do your reflections right away. You don't want to get to week 7 and suddenly realize you're missing things from 2 semesters ago, or you have to find something that you write a reflection. It's very difficult to write a reflection on something that happened a semester ago or 2 semesters ago, because that's the importance of doing it right when you have it. And if you keep on top of that, it's really then only 3 major assignments for this course. My policy is still the same. You get your rubric, you get detailed feedback from the rubric. If you're not satisfied with your points, you can contact me and ask if you can revise and resubmit any section or any portion to regain points. Any questions? Comments? Let me know you're alive there.
I honestly just missed your organization. I'm like really excited to have you, like all the how organized and pretty it was. That's my comment.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. Some people would call me a little bit different than organized. The word anal has been used, and OCD has also been used. So, but I
Just
do get.
comment if we, sorry, go
Mhm.
ahead.
No, just giving myself other names. That's all.
Okay, no. If we give you our resume, would you give us feedback on it before we put it up in the portfolio?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions, comments. Got it all under control. You have to be so proud of yourselves. You have to pat yourselves on your back. I mean, look at this. You made it all the way to this. You've made it through the internship. You've made it through all the classes, even including the law class, which everyone always talks about. Um, and you're ready. You're really at the end. It's really awesome. And we've got time. I mean, we've got time to do some thoughtful things and have some thoughtful conversations. And then you're going to be walking the stage in May, coming to the hooding ceremony and all of those kinds of exciting things. So it'll be fun. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well then let's buckle up and get started. How's that? Okay. Okay, I'm hoping you can see this. When I'm doing this, I can't always see you, so don't if you have a question, you've got a comment, just unmute and pop in there. So we're going to talk about understanding character education, and I'm going to talk about it from a couple of different viewpoints. And some people would say, okay, as school leaders, we need to ensure that students are college and career ready. That's often what you hear from people. People like myself, who are really big proponents of moral education, would probably argue a little differently and say that schools have a responsibility to graduate students who are character and citizenship ready. And I think we're seeing the importance of that more than ever these days. So, I think that the personal and the social development of our students is never been really more important. But to find the space and the time to do that among all the other pressures and expectations and assessments that are put on educators today is really challenging. So I'm inviting you to think about, the importance of this personal and social development through the concept or through the lens of character education. We're going to take a little bit of a dive into it. Obviously, my proponent stance is neo-Aristotelian. And I think it's important because that starts with developing the virtues in the students. And you've heard this from me before, but it's important to start developing those virtues in our students and across the curriculum. So in this sense, character education is almost a subset of moral education that's concerned with the positive character traits that I tend to call virtues. Some people call them values, some people call them attributes, some of them call them dispositions, whatever you're comfortable with. But the one I'm comfortable with is really virtues. The Jubilee Center for Character and Virtues that you've heard me talk about, that's at the University of Birmingham, they define character education as a set of personal traits or dispositions that produce specific moral emotions, inform motivation, and guide conduct. And I think that's a pretty accurate definition that I'm comfortable with. So when you think about it, and we go back to our friend Aristotle, and I love his comment about educating the mind without educating the heart is not really education at all. So when you think about it, we want to help our students to develop holistically, right? We want them to develop academically, we want them to develop personally, and we want them to develop socially. Now, there are a lot of different approaches that can do this. We hear a lot about positive education. We hear about social and emotional learning. We hear about human rights or humanistic education. We even hear about citizenship education, just to name a few. Now, in some schools, these various approaches actually work in tandem with character education. In others, they're very distinct, siloed alternatives. And that's something that, whatever works, right? So when you talk to a lot of character educators, they tend to be from really different groups and from different perspectives. They often approach character education very differently, and you'll see this when you meet up with our character panel next week. The character panel we have next week, we've got a couple of people that are local. I think one from Chicago, one from Joliet, but then we've got people from Alabama and Mississippi, Carolina, um, kind of all over. So you're going to see a lot of different people who have approached it different ways. But a lot of times what we find is that, they tend to agree on some basic tenets. One is that character obviously is something we can teach, right? And it can also kind of in progress be measured in a way, not necessarily the way we normally do with our measuring sticks, but holistically. They also tend to agree that it's very important to contributing not only to this flourishing of the individual, but to the society in general. They also talk about character being caught from us through role modeling and what we might call even just emotional contagion. We know that students are learning from us, watching us all the time. So whether or not we're intentional about it, whether or not we're aware of it, we are modeling things for them, particularly in character. We do know that good character in our students lays the foundation for better behavior and ultimately increased employability as they move into the world. And we do know that kind of a happy byproduct that wasn't something that was documented early in the years, but character education tends to result in academic school gains in schools. And it also is very empowering to students, and it promotes that whole idea of democratic citizenship. So when you think about it, virtues are really, there are things that we see often in mission statements, vision statements of school. Remember when you did that, leadership identity assignment back in 500, and you created the image that goes on your landing page. So when you think about it, it's important to schools because they talk about these things, and virtue is something that's you've got to think about it as being intrinsically a worthwhile quality. It says something very deeply about the person who possesses them. And so the idea of building a vocabulary, being explicit so that students become familiar with the language can really make a difference. And I want to make sure that you understand that that was a lot of what I did in 500. We introduced you to our 16 different character virtues, leadership virtues. We talked about the moral, we talked about the intellectual, we talked about the civic, we talked about the performance. We did a lot of work on that. And part of the research that I did, including your group, really shows the importance of how that impacted things. One of the studies that I did was taking those simple writing samples that you did before you started the 500, the one that you took at the end of 500, and the one that you will take at the end of 696, and did a complete qualitative study on how rich and the difference was in people's writing and the richness of the language and understanding of character. So when you think about character, it does come from an ancient Greek word, character. And in that language, it actually meant to engrave or make a mark. I think that's kind of interesting because when you think about it, character really kind of has evolved over time to be something like the mark or the qualities of a person. And so when you think about it, these are, a character is really who we are as human beings, right? It's kind of the distinctive features of it of an individual. And when we talk about our family, when we talk about our friends, our colleagues, or even public figures, we often describe them in terms of their qualities, whether they're kind, whether they're trustworthy, whether they're honest. And when someone who's a very respected, perhaps individual makes a mistake, we often make the comment about, oh, that was really out of character for that person. So when you think about it, those qualities that are ingrained in our character are really more central to who we are than other qualities that we might describe as just attributes or dispositions that we hold less deeply or less dearly. So when you think about it, I really love the work of David Brooks. I don't know how many of you have ever read any of his work, but David Brooks is a very prolific author. He's written a lot of books that, on a lot of different topics. But one of the things that he has focused on in the latter half of his career is talking about character. One he wrote is called The Road to Character. Really important book that it talks about 10 major individuals over the time in history and how character has changed in their lives and how that whole road or journey that people have taken and have developed character has changed their lives. It's a small book. When you're finished with this course and you're bored and have nothing to do, it's a great small book to read. He followed that up with a book called The Second Mountain. And that one is really kind of powerful. It's actually one that's worth reading and reading deeply. It's one I often have given to people as a gift at Christmas time. But in that book, he talks about two different types of virtues. He talks about resume virtues and eulogy virtues. He defines resume virtues as the skills you bring to the job market that contribute to external success. The eulogy virtues, on the other hand, are much more deeply rooted in our character, and these are the ones that will be talked about at your funeral. Whether you were kind, whether you were brave, whether you were honest. So there's a real difference in looking at those types of virtues. Now, Aristotle talked a lot about um, the virtues are really begin, the development of virtues really begins at home, right? Through your family, through your neighborhoods. But that subsequently, your virtue develops through a pattern of repeated choices. And that means that you're developing the habits of character, right? It kind of infers in a way that it's a behavioral trait, but that wouldn't really be accurate because dispositions could be a neutral term. But, as you remember seeing something like this back in 2024 in the summer, we know that the Jubilee character talks about them as the building blocks of character. They talk about virtues as being the building blocks of character, and they talk about the four distinct categories. Now, the whole idea here is to think about the difference between values and virtues, right? Because a lot of times we see these in mission statements together, and they're really not interchangeable if you really look at it. A value is a principle or a goal that's important to the school. It actually can be very subjective. A virtue, however, is something that's intrinsically a worthwhile quality, and it says something much deeper about the individual. So when you think about it, it's a little bit deeper and a little bit more important. So when we talk about defining character education, these are a couple of ones that have come across over the years. But whatever we think about, um, character education is really not optional. It's really something that happens all the time, whether we're doing it intentionally or whether it's happening accidentally. The other thing we have to think about is that it's more than just a subject, right? It's got to be part of the culture of the school. It's got to be something we see in the families and in the community and bigger. And so it's really important to think about how this happens. I'm going to take you to a short video that from the Jubilee Center. Let's make sure I can do this without goofing up like I often do. We got it. Okay.
Character is the type of person we are. I'd say character is how you come across. I describe character as the virtues that make up your personality. It comes from you. It's the way that you act, what people see you as. Character is the ability to understand people on an emotional and intellectual level and understand their viewpoints. So what is character? I think it's best to start with personality. Each of us has got a distinct personality profile, but some of that profile is genetic and difficult to change. For example, whether we are introvert or extrovert. However, within personality, there is a subset of traits that we call character. So character refers to that part of personality which can be evaluated from a moral point of view and which is amenable to reasoning, to upbringing, to coaching. This is why we talk about character education rather than personality education. Virtues are the qualities that help us to respond well to the challenges that we meet within life. Each virtue is made up of various different components. So, for example, we need to notice the right things, we need to feel the right emotions, we need to be motivated to do the right things, and in the end, obviously, we need to do the right things. And the virtues are not just skills. I mean, the skills are based on our personal values. The virtues are different. Their value is universal. They are valuable in and by themselves because they help human beings to flourish. Character is an important impact factor on how well we do in life. It's important to note that character is not inborn. It's shaped and formed originally through our relationship with our primary caregivers, and then when we go to school, through our associations with our peers and our teachers. People often ask, so should character be taught or just caught? For me, that's a false dichotomy. It should ideally both be taught and caught. If schools all around the world focus on the character development of students, then the missing piece, the missing element in education can't be provided.
Well, it's not really easy to force a person to change their character, like you have to do this, you have to do that. It's kind of like you get taught the virtues.
It can actually be influenced, I think, character a lot in schools. It's where you spend most of your time as a child.
I think it can be taught, but not in the conventional sense of someone stands in front of you talking. It's something that I think that needs to be learned through experience.
When I'm asked, can you teach character? Of course, it would be incredibly difficult to teach young people to be honest or, say, resilient by sitting them in the classroom for 40 minutes. But certainly, there are things that you can do within a school that will help young people to develop those sorts of virtues through the whole process of education. It's actually very difficult to get to grips with the term character until you actually start to talk about what I would call the building blocks of character, which is the virtues. And when you start to talk about these virtues, you can start to talk about the types of character qualities that we think schools should prioritize. And we can break these virtues down into different sorts of types. So absolutely crucial type of virtues is the moral virtues. These are virtues such as honesty and compassion and integrity and humility and gratitude. The virtues that really enable you to do the right thing at the right time. And then there's another type called performance virtues. These are the types of virtues that might be things such as resilience and teamwork and leadership and communication. We can talk about civic virtues such as service and volunteering and good citizenship. And then a final type would be intellectual virtues, things such as curiosity and communication. And it's actually all of these types of virtues that come together to form someone's character. Perhaps the most important virtue is actually the virtue of phronesis, which could be perhaps called a meta virtue, which ties all the other virtues together. It allows you to do the right thing at the right time in the right place and the right amount when, say, two or more different virtues collide. Because what's important is encouraging young people to think about the different scenarios or dilemmas or experiences that they actually face day in, day out. And they call for good judgment, for wisdom to be shown when displaying the different virtues. A lot of who we are, who we become, is shaped by our experience at school, by the people we meet, the opportunities that we get involved with, the experiences we have. The transformative possibilities of going to a school that really puts a strong focus on character and character education can be immensely powerful and I would argue life-changing for many young people.
I think my best virtues are self-discipline and courage. Like if you tell quite a lot of lies, you can change that to add the character virtue honesty.
It's no good just teaching them about character on a PowerPoint or just talking to them about it. I think of character, it's more of a hands-on thing. You have to actually be a good person. You need to feel how it feels to actually do good things. And I think you can only really teach the true essence of character if you show good character.
We all go into education to make a difference to the lives of the students that we come into contact with. The vision and the ethos about developing the character of the children and our aspiration to transform the lives of the pupils, I'm sure that's the same for all schools around the country. I think what we have been able to do from the start is to say that the character development of the students is the most important thing. And we truly believe that if we get that right with committed, dedicated, highly qualified teachers, then the outputs of the school, whether they be measured in terms of accounting measures of exams, But for us, more importantly, what the students are going to turn out like, what impact they're going to have in the community, actually, that's the most important thing for us.
That one. Resilience, excellent.
We've been able to design the school day and the school week so we can have explicit and implicit teaching of character. I hope that I'm seeing that our teachers can relax. It's not about measuring them all the time. It's about them forming relationships, developing their own skills that they can share with the children.
This lovely texture, but at my old school, she didn't really see the teachers outside a lesson, whereas now we can go and see the teachers at any point in the day and they'll be there to help us. We start every Monday with reflection, which gives all the children a chance to really think about how they've used virtues over the weekend, to have a bit of time to themselves, just for some mindfulness and to really think about how they're going to approach the week ahead. And we also finish every day with a 10-minute look at how they've used their virtues positively, where they notice virtues that their friends in their class have used. They think about how perhaps they could have developed virtues and used them more wisely, made wiser choices.
We've got our teamwork virtues that Pete was talking about, real self-discipline to learn your guitar and practice it.
At the end of the day, we have 10 minutes of reflecting, and I don't think that many schools do that. And like, if you have done a negative thing in class, then you can talk to the teacher about why you did it and what you could do to stop it.
And you're not happy when I said I've got a reason for that?
This morning we had like this smartie thing where the teacher gave random people lots of smarties while some people only got one or none. So I think that taught us about empathy, of how we would be in if we were in other people's shoes.
So think today, am I treating everyone fairly?
As soon as they go into their tutor groups, which they go to for, we're really lucky, 30 minutes every morning, they will have a focus on a character virtue. So, for example, the sixth form started year 12 with a unit on procrastination, so they could help develop the virtues they needed to be good at studying. Year 7 started with the vocabulary of character education. So they had a language to talk about virtues, because whilst some of these words are very familiar from how they've been taught at primary school, so they talk about being kind and having kind hands and being kind to their friends, they might not be so clear about what it means to have self-discipline or show empathy. So we run a whole tutorial program where they look at the virtues, but then we contextualize them so they're relevant. They will look at how they could use virtues to make the right choices, for example. We have a unit on future mindedness. So from the start of year 7, they're really focusing on who they want to be, what sort of person they want to be, and how their character virtues can help them develop into that person. And I suppose one of the really exciting things that the students, I think, probably enjoy most is the enrichment program, where for an hour on a Monday and an hour on a Friday, they have pretty much free choice of about 25 different activities, most of which are new to them, where they can put their virtues into practice. We have cooking, sugarcraft, computer coding, so a whole range of different activities that most students have never ever tried before. And they get a chance to just experience something new, and they have to do it for a fixed amount of time. So it teaches them how to be resilient, but also try new things.
We're looking at the University of Birmingham School in developing the whole person. And so any of those virtues at some point in their journey through school will become a focus for us and for them. And in the full range of the activities that we have in school, whether it's in lessons or enrichment, or in our personal learning development program, we will hopefully over 7 years have a coherent path through the virtues, allowing the children to reflect on what they're doing, to develop their understanding of the virtues. And importantly, I think, again, in the message that we often talk about, is allow the children to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes.
If you get told off, you've done something that's against the virtues, they just tell us, you can go do some reflection, think about what you've done. And I think I'd rather have a reflection than get told off, because then if I get told off, I don't really understand what I've done wrong. But then if you're doing your reflection, you think about what you've done and why you've done it, why you could improve, and how you could be better. What's really important to remember is that when you become a teacher, you want to change lives. And actually, by thinking about character and how you can
put character into the lessons that you already have, into tutor times that you already have, using assembly slightly differently, finding time to reflect with students, giving them space to grow and space to learn. I think with that commitment, anyone can teach character.
But teaching character in school, it's really important because it's lifelong education.
When we're praised, we're not praised on, oh, you got 85%, you're praised on being resilient and how much hard work you did. And I feel like that's encouraging better habits later on.
Grades, they tell you how clever you are and how well you're doing, I suppose, and definitely help with like jobs and careers. But your character is who you are individually. It makes you different to everyone else.
I think character and character education is fundamental to young people in schools flourishing, but also for society much more widely to really function.
They are honestly the happiest children I've ever seen in any school I've worked in. They still make mistakes because they are children, but I think they're beginning to realize that if they really reflect on their mistakes and internalize what's gone wrong and have a space and a chance to do that through reflective conversations, they can change their course of life and their journeys. They're beginning to use the language of virtues in a way that I thought would take a lot longer. Students want to be good people and they want to do well, and now they've got a vocabulary they can use to talk about their virtues and how they're feeling, but they've also got a way through that is becoming really, really meaningful to them.
It's got to be about preparing them for the world beyond the school. And so that we hope that when our students leave us, that they will be well prepared to go out into the world to be happy, fulfilled, engaged citizens who are good people. And if we achieve that, then I'll be very, very happy.
It's really nice how we integrate character into everything. And I'll always remember the quote we got on the first day of school when they said to us that the reason why we implement character into everything that we will do is because at the end, when you have literally nothing left, I mean, money can go, assets can go, but the only thing you'll actually have left at the end of all of that is character. And that really hits me hard. And it sort of puts into perspective everything that we do.
So your thoughts so far on what we've been talking about character. I know that you probably haven't talked as much about character in intermediate courses as we did in 500 or as we will in this course, but what are your thoughts after what we've talked about so far and seeing those children talking? And by the way, you just were introduced to two of my professors from the University of Birmingham. The first one, Dr. Christensen, and then Dr. Harrison.
So when I was watching this, it made me reflect on like my childhood. And I was thinking about how I went to a Catholic school from first grade to eighth grade. And I think a lot about religious education at that time. So we didn't call it character education, it was religious education. So I think about my foundation, about character building. I think a lot came from the schooling that I had, you know, my family, my faith, and my religion. And I think a lot of that formed my character education, and hearing those words about compassion and empathy and so many things, honesty, and how those tied into a lot of the things that I was taught within my faith and being a good person and what that takes. And I think sometimes that's missing in families or children maybe today. And I'm not saying it's Catholicism, and I'm not saying that's one religion over the other. I feel a lot of character development ties into sometimes the upbringing and maybe the faith forming and what families hold. And sometimes I think that maybe isn't the foundation as much everywhere or as much as it could have been or should be now. But I do feel that schools can play more of a part, public schools in a different form, kind of a way than maybe I had in the Catholic school and the upbringing I had in first through eighth grade. It makes me think to myself that yes, if I'm lucky enough to land an AP position, it makes me think about how being out of the classroom, though, I could try to have an impact on students in a school building in some ways, because I'm thinking about too, how could I turn like character development into a key role of something I'd want to do in my position when teachers are feeling very discouraged that things aren't working or there's, they're trying this or they're trying that and certain behaviors are not necessarily going away. How could I support those teachers? How can I let character development play a part in my role as a leader and as an AP, future AP, I would like to think. But if I could do it in some ways without having additional curriculum that maybe my district has to pay for. So watching that made me think about, again, my childhood and then what I would like to possibly try to bring in my own building, because I often hear teachers feeling very discouraged about the way that, kids behave, the way they talk to one another. In my building, we teach, I am kind, I'm safe, I'm responsible. But I think it has to be broken down so much more than that. They need to hear the words of compassion about, what empathy looks like, what it means to have empathy, what it means to have be, courageous and honest. There's so many kids that when you confront them and you ask them if they did something, they want to lie right away. They want to deflect. They want to say, I didn't do that. But explaining why it's important to be honest, how we learn from our mistakes. It's okay to admit you did something wrong. So I think to myself that this is a huge part of that whole like social, academic, but yet forming the whole person and the kind of children we want to form to be successful adults, helpful in their community, and helpful as professionals down the road. And so there's so much that we do within curriculum and education and academics, but it's also about the way that we respond or how we show and model these virtues and values within children. And I'd like to play a part in that in a leadership position. That's what I thought of when I watched the video.
Thank you. Anyone want to piggyback on Mary's comments or disagree or challenge?
I can piggyback. I agree with Mary. I think that there are definitely some things within our public schools that we can be doing better. And when I think about character education, I think about different curriculums. How can we weave those topics into what we're reading? How we're persevering through different tasks that are difficult? What strategies are we using to get through our days and make great choices? And then again, it goes back down to that modeling and how are we as adults modeling the same things when we're having a rough day? Are we vulnerable enough to tell our kids, hey, you know what? I woke up this morning, I'm having kind of a crummy day. Can you help me through this? And model that conversation so that kids, when they're having a rough day, they can come in and they can uh, verbally state how they're feeling and what they need as well.
And I do think we have a lot of children who are I guess I would call them school dependent because these kinds of things are not going to happen at home. And if they don't happen at home and they don't happen in school, then what's happening to them as individuals in terms of their growth, in terms of their growth as a whole person and as a citizen. Okay, let's see if we can pop back to the PowerPoint. Just want to make sure that video doesn't take off on me again. Sometimes they start over on me. So kind of continuing on this, there are a lot of different things that happen in schools that are related, right? We talk about all these things that you see on the screen, and in that sense, one of the people who is a real big person in character education in the United States is Dr. Marvin Berkowitz, and he talks about the fact that this is all really kind of a semantic minefield, right? And it's the thing is that these terms and concepts and things are often used in different ways, and they're overlapping terms, and they sometimes differ even geographically, like different parts of the country. But the real reality that he says is educators are likely to be familiar with and possibly working with and across all these different types of approaches. I know all of you are working in schools in Illinois, so therefore you're obliged to be talking about social and emotional learning. There's a document that I think I showed you back in 500, but I'm going to show it to you again in this course that has been created by character.org that takes social emotional learning and character education and blends it together and talks about the author, Dr. Arthur Schwartz, talks about how character education gives social and emotional learning its heart. And it gives it that piece that kind of is the missing piece to taking it from just basic skills to actually the development of the whole person. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. One of the things that's important to understand is that the research that's been done at the Jubilee Center has come up with this idea that virtue is actually made up of different components. And they talk about 7 distinct components, the ones you see here on the screen. So like virtue perception, and I think Dr. Harrison talked a little bit about that in the video where he talks about noticing it, understanding, when you see virtues in action or when they're needed. Knowledge and understanding means kind of not only just knowing the definition, but kind of thinking about like, what is it? I mean, what's the meaning of the virtue? And that it's one of the reasons that when we do things in 500, where you look at each of the different virtues individually and discretely, it's important to think about them because, we've learned little maybe generic definitions of what virtues are, but virtues have all of these other pieces, right? They have emotion, there's motivation, there's reasoning, there's all of these things are kind of tied into it. So you have to understand that it's a very multifaceted type of thing. And one of the things that I did a lot of research on was the virtue perception, virtue knowledge and understanding, and virtue reasoning. Those 3 things together are called virtue literacy. And it really comes to like what one of the, I think it was the assistant principal or whatever her title was there, was talking about giving people the language. We talk about literacy, and with literacy, you have to learn vocabulary first, right? You have to understand the meanings of the vocabulary, but then you also have to be able to apply it and understand it and use it correctly. So there's this whole concept of virtue literacy that I think is important. We have all these different approaches. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. There's, positive education has been kind of brought forward with, Peterson and Seligman. You probably remember them. They did the VIA character strengths assessment that you did in 500. We have Dr. Angela Duckworth, who talks about grit. We have Paul Tough, who wrote a lot about how children succeed, and they all focus pretty heavily on positive education. There's also the whole field of positive psychology, and there's an international network on that. Lots and lots of that kind of work being done. We also have what they call PERMA, which has been used by, trying to think where that came from. I think it comes kind of from Peterson and Seligman's work, but it also comes from that whole idea of studying happiness. And they talk about, PERMA being like P for positive emotion, E for engagement, R for relationships, M for meaning, A for accomplishments. And then they kind of bring in H, which was kind of bringing in health, which is kind of important to it as well. So there's a lot of these different types of approaches that are out there. And, there's different ways to think about this. But just for a minute, just think, about a school that you might have good, knowledge about. Maybe it's the one you're at now or one that you spend a lot of time about. And think about it, really and truly, when you're thinking about these things about positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, accomplishments, jot down a few notes that we can talk about later. But how does that impact the culture and ethos of the school? How can that impact the curriculum? How can it impact the teaching that you do? How can it impact relationships? Just kind of keep that on the back burner as we move forward. So you've done this before. You've taken that VI inventory of the character strengths. We're not going to do that again this evening. You did it in 500, and you're welcome to go back and do it anytime. But they're organized around 6 major virtues that they talk about, the ones that you see here on the screen. They also have all those sub strengths that they use. So there's the 6 different character virtues, but then they also have a lot of sub areas that kind of totals to 24 different character strengths. And I think it's interesting that, you took it in 500. You may not have taken it since then. It might be interesting to take it again and compare and see over the course of your 2 years in this program, how much of that has changed in you. Have your strengths changed in the way that, maybe what was at the top when you started the program might not be as close to being on the top now. The other piece again, and I think I should have Meredith talk about this because she's a much better expert on social and emotional learning, but there are a lot of similarities and overlaps with SEL and character education. And one of the things that's important is that you think about SEL kind of is very talking about planned and systematic and monitored kinds of things. And SEL has a lot of positive things. It improves social and emotional skills. It can bring about improved academic performance. It can bring about improved attitudes, behaviors. reduce emotional stress, reduce bullying, reduce conduct problems or behavior problems, and it can actually improve like school conditions. The thing is that it's got those 4 or 5 areas, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making. A lot of similarities to character education there. They're all focused on the holistic development of children, the importance of good leadership, the need for an intentional approach when you're doing this, and then the development of both interpersonal and intrapersonal qualities. So when you think about it, it's kind of interesting. Um, I would, when I was talking about what they did at character.org and how they took the character education pieces and they brought it in SEL, I love the way they brought this together. So you can see that on the left-hand side, you got the moral, the performance, the intellectual, and the civic. And that really parallels on the right-hand side to self-awareness, self-management, interpersonal relationship skills, and social awareness. And the bottom piece that brings it all together is that piece where you get the moral compass, responsible and ethical decision making. If you look later on in our Canvas course, there's an entire PDF document there that you'll see this image on the front of it, and it actually goes through and it really links both SEL and character education together, and it has an entire developmental progression of how you can bring these two together and teach them together. So something that would be kind of interesting to look at as we move forward. There's a lot of resources I've placed in there for future. You've already been exposed to the Jubilee Center for Character and Virtues. There's also something called the primed model that Marvin Berkowitz developed, which is a really handy thing to look at. Some information about that is also in our Canvas course. And there's also the character.org's 11 principles, which I think are something that's really interesting to talk about. We know the Jubilee Center is that character caught, character taught, character sought. You've heard that, you've read that in articles. When you talk about character being taught, it can be taught in all these different areas. There's a lot of different ways that you can teach it. One of the high schools that I worked with when I had my interns a few years back decided to bring in these kinds of virtues to their students. And what they did was they decided to not call them character traits or virtues because it was a public high school, but they decided to call them, attributes of one of their students, one of their eagles. They did some really great work, and one of my interns was really involved in it, where they started with all these different, virtues, and they sent them out to students, to staff, to faculty, to parents, and asked them to kind of rank the top ones that they felt were attributes they'd like to see students graduating from this high school have when they leave the program. So they brought it all back together. The math teachers crunched all the numbers, and then they sent it back out again with the top, I think maybe 20, and had people again, everyone rank them again. And they came up with, I think it was about a list of about a dozen. And then what was really interesting is that one of the big things that can be a point of resistance in high school is that we've got people that are subject area specialists, right? And they're like, I'm the math teacher, I'm the science teacher, I'm the health teacher, these kinds of things. So instead of saying you have to teach all of these virtues, what they did was broke them into teams and said, okay, you're the mathematic department over here. Which of these virtues really kind of naturally occur in your discipline? Did the same thing with the people in the arts. They did the same thing with the people in science and history, et cetera. So people began to realize, okay, I need to look at ones that naturally fit my discipline, and then I can have it happen naturally without adding a new curriculum, just emphasizing it in the curriculum that I already teach. And by having everyone involved in it, and students take all of these classes, over time, they're exposed to all of them. And so it was a really interesting way of incorporating it into the curriculum without adding any more to the plate of teachers, and letting them choose which ones were most likely to be the ones that would occur in their discipline. So I'm going to kind of stop there for a minute, because what I want to do is I want to take you back to our Canvas course and show you what's there in terms of resources. See if I can do this. I don't know how to do, but my internet is slow tonight. Sorry. The one I want to emphasize is the 11 principles, because I think that's something that's going to come up in the topic next week with our guest speakers. So this is the PowerPoint that I've been using. I'm not going to use all of it this evening. This is the link to the video that I showed you. But remember, I talked to you about the social emotional model standards. This is the book that was developed. You can see it's a 32-page, and it's all about bringing it together. And they've got a whole area of how they talk about bringing all of these together. And then what's really nice after they get through all of the core beliefs and all of that kind of thing, they start with talking about, if I can get there fast enough. So here's moral character. They define it, they talk about outcomes, and then they talk about what would be appropriate in grades like, say, K to 2, ages 5 to 7. What would be appropriate 3 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12. And these are ways that they have, things that you can do with children of all these ages that really kind of talk about those types of characters. Also give you lots of resources to take a look at. So it's really interesting the way they put all of that together. I think it's helpful and it's fascinating. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is the 11 principles of character education and character development. Have any of you seen the 11 principles? Have any of you used them in your schools? Are you familiar with, any of you familiar with, like, they have these state schools of character and national schools of character? Have you heard anything about any of that? Well, one of our speakers, well, a lot of our speakers next week will have had some experience with them, but one in particular, Jacob Darley, whose school is a it's kind of like a magnet school in Joliet, and he just brought his faculty through their second time being named a national school of character. And what happens is when you do these processes to become a school of character, it usually takes 4 to 5 years. But you're looking at, these are the principles that they're talking about. And there's versions of them here. There's scoring guides of how you can assess your school to see where you are on it. There's some really interesting information about how they put this together. But it's really, it kind of breaks down quality education, who should be involved, and then really and truly assessment. And so, this is kind of a handout that gives you just an overview of that. It's a very interesting process, and it's something that a lot of districts are really moving towards. It's interesting state by state. It's starting to catch a little bit in Illinois. If you go down to Missouri, there's probably 50, of those schools of character. It's a process of almost like self-reflection and self-evaluation as a faculty. So you work through the different principles and you figure out where you are. Then you work towards reaching those principles. And so it's almost like a self-assessment process, but it's also kind of as a group you develop as a faculty because you're working towards these pieces. And it makes a huge difference in terms of what happens there. Any questions about what I've been babbling about for the last hour? Or any thoughts or comments? It's bringing you all back to 500 again. Is that good or bad? Okay. Well,
I will just add, Dr. Spellman, I can add, I'm interested to hear the speakers come in and hear how they're incorporating it. I think that'll be really helpful because I can pick out pieces. Meredith kind of mentioned this when she was giving feedback, like from our SEL second step curriculum, and we have guidelines for success from foundations, but like it doesn't feel super holistic or integrative. So I'm really interested to hear what it could look like because I'm having a hard time conceptualizing what it could really look like in the school setting. At least my school currently right now. So I'm eager to hear from people.
I would really encourage you before we meet with them next week to really take a look at the resources I just showed you around the 11 principles, because I think that will be very helpful. I think the other thing is that the first handbook I showed you that has the heart, that you really ought to download that and take a look at that. It'll not only help you as a person understanding this, but it's going to help you with all the assignments in this course, right? It's going to help you with when you get to that, your own your own video on your vision for character education in your school. It's going to help you in your team project, those kinds of things. So I would definitely encourage you to look at those as well. Okay. All right, so it's 6:20. You've got to be dying to get up and move around. I know I am. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you in your breakout groups, and then I'm going to have you close your cameras and your audio. Take about a 15-minute break, so from 6:20 to say 6:35. Then come back, and when you come back, I will have opened the ethical dilemma. So you will need to read the ethical dilemma. But let me just, well, actually, we're probably going to make this 6:25 to 6:40 because I'm going to show you one more thing. I should have done this before I turn things off, but give me 1 second. Just want to show you something that's a little different than it was in 500, okay? When you go into our Canvas course and you click on the ethical dilemma for this evening, you're going to see something a little different. Okay. So the title of the case study is Glory and Fame, right? This is the framework that it's a PDF, it's a Word document like we always did. So you'll download the document, and as a team, you can either have one person take notes or you can put it in Google Docs and take notes as you discuss through together. But this is the template for notes here. This is something that I've created since I was with you in summer of 2024. I've taken that long document where you take notes on, and I've put it into this graphic, which kind of shows you kind of how it actually kind of gives it to you all in a snapshot. So I think some people find that helpful to look at. Just to remind you, these are our North Central virtues. One of the things people have talked about over time is that, when they get to the idea of talking about what leadership styles are needed, they're kind of struggling to remember them all. So this is a really good document that gives you a lot of information about a wide variety of leadership styles. There are a lot more virtues than the 16 that you see on this page here. So lots of different lists of virtues that you can look at if you're kind of wanting to say what virtues are, important in this situation or which ones are in conflict. I'm giving you resources that, you're not limited to just this here. Does that make sense? You're very quiet tonight. You're making me nervous. No comments, no questions? Okay, just give me a second to assign you to breakout groups. I have them here somewhere. I think I just covered everything up. I'm going to put you in breakout groups, which are also just for tonight. That they're also your group for the video project. So later on, I'll be able to give you time to work in those groups as well. Okay. So let's see. So group 1 is going to be Darlene, Gabrielle, and Ella. Okay. Sorry, this is small. Then we got Meredith and Sierra, Isabel, and Mary, and Mary. Okay, so when I open the rooms, as soon as you accept and you get back in your room, you can turn off your camera, take your break. I'll see you back at 6:40. But when you get back at 6:40, start reading the case study. Then I'll be able to tell when you're starting to talk, and I'll join your conversations. Okay, have a good break. See you in about 16 minutes.
But she was one. She did not live in district, and the coach helped her find a house actually near where I live right now, her and her mom, so that she could go to the school and be on the basketball team and win us a bunch of championships. So there's a lot
Wow.
of that's a lot
Real
of
life.
ethical
Yes.
issues
I
going on
mean,
there.
and the next bullet is formulate questions. And I did put like that was my initial reaction. I'm like, you're breaking code. I don't I can't, can't
Just
play.
can't do that.
But my initial question, if I had to have one that could open my heart a little bit, or maybe look at a different way to make this all work is what resulted in the child to move. Like I would like to know more about that situation, if it was a result of housing instability, because my McKinney-Vento brain kind of turned on. So I was just kind of wanting to know, and maybe this is just a reach or a stretch, like what actually happened to result in the move is what I was wondering. That was a question I had. Any other questions?
I mean, I guess what is the school's policy in terms of like when you do move? Because I know like our district,
You can
if you
finish the
move
year.
mid-year,
Yep.
you have the opportunity to still go to stay within district
Mm-hmm.
as long as transportation is provided
Us too. So that's
by the
the
family. But like the district will not provide transportation, but if like the families can get the
yep.
kids to the school, like you are, so I would like to know if there are similar policies
But
I
in that
my
regard.
question, so like my district does that too, but I work at an elementary building. Is that different with sport? Like, are the sports policies different than like attending classes? I don't know because I know nothing about high school.
I
Well,
know
I
nothing about
guess
high school either.
me either. I guess that's another question, though. What are the IHSA regulations and rules? So putting on like your legal hat, because I know there are a whole bunch of rules when it comes to sporting associations within the state and what they can allow for students. So I guess what are those
Mm-hmm.
regulations and what do those?
We're actually kind of getting into the third bullet, which is what are the professional code of ethics, school rules, policies
Yeah,
need to be
yeah.
consulted. So I moved it down there.
Okay. I love it.
I'm really bad at Board of Ed policies and knowing all of them. I'm sure there is something in there.
Probably.
Sure.
I'm sure there are.
If anybody who joined our group knows of any off the top of their head. I am so bad with board policies. I cannot keep any of them straight. It's bad.
Oh,
It is an area of improvement for me.
they change. Also, who is he?
Yes.
Who is the capture to the other?
Were you going to ask another question?
With his youth coach. The weeks we didn't have to for his new schools team. Well, I wanted to refresh my memory of who he's staying with. He's staying with his youth coach. So
Yeah, it wasn't affiliated with the school, right?
guess that no.
Because that would get a little tricky. That would add another layer to this ethical dilemma.
Yes.
What virtues are relevant to the dilemma? Honesty.
Honesty, yeah. I guess it's not something you can just kind of shove under the rug and ignore. The community will find out.
Mm-hmm.
They always
And then
do.
it'll be on blast on
Let
social media.
me pulling up our Canva.
I was just pulling up things too.
What else? I mean, I get maybe empathy. Like you feel for the kid. The kid, he's clearly a very talented basketball player, and he's got scholarships and his future
Did
ahead
feel
of
bad when they
him.
talked
And
about that.
you know,
Okay, he should be
No,
able to
that's spelling.
any team with or without Jason. So those were our initial reactions.
Mhm.
Did we have any questions that we were?
You mentioned the one about like why, like kind of just like a further explanation of the policy of why he couldn't move or finish
Oh,
out the
why he
academic
can't
year.
stay? Didn't we say like why can't Jason continue to finish out the year while he started? Because I know
in my building, yes, if a student started the school year, they can technically stay and finish. But again, that's a elementary building, a primary building. Things may be different for high school. Is that what you guys are saying?
Yeah, it's different, at least different for our district.
My middle school has that same policy that you can finish out the year.
Finish out the year.
Mhm. And we're a elementary district. We don't have a high school a part of our district. So I don't know if maybe that's partially why as well.
Didn't it say that he was staying with
A coat,
He was
a
staying with
staff
the
member?
coach.
Which I
Or
know is another school policy that's messed, like you can't fake an address.
No, and that's just it.
yeah.
And I feel
Yeah,
like it's,
he was
yeah.
staying in the district with his youth coach throughout the week so that he did not have to play for his new school's team.
So that sounds like to me that he's been like there for a while.
I'm also confused, like, is this youth coach not the same person as his regular basketball coach, Coach
No, I think it's
Noah?
like a coach from his
It's like a club and then like a high school team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different
I would
person. Okay.
never. No, that's weird. I love my dancers at my dance studio, but I would never let them stay with me because of a school thing. I'd be like,
I
that's
wouldn't even
so
give them a
dumb.
ride.
Yeah, there are so many times where I've stayed at the studio late till the kids get picked up versus taking them home, and they live by me, but I'm not taking a kid home.
No,
I don't even care if I grew up with this kid. I'm not doing that. It's weird now. If I was a
no, too much
dancer,
of a
I'd take it.
liability.
Exactly.
Um, Going down to the next one, what professional codes of ethics, school rules, and or policies need to be consulted? So I put the state athletic policy, the
Mhm.
school policy on students living in residence other than his parents, and like what we were talking about, that moral and ethical obligation that the leader needs to
Yes,
Yeah,
have.
I would
like
say
morally, they
obligation.
want their school to do well because, like, when teams win, culture goes up and all that mantra stuff. But then they lose their leadership credibility, honestly, if they go against like a basic state rule.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Perfect.
My
So
Talked
this all
about
reminds
that,
me of
the
my football team.
Virgils too.
yeah, moral, ethical.
That cool document.
Honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the other word I was thinking of?
Let's look at the cool chart. There's
Integrity? Is that
yeah,
part of
integrity is
integrity?
part of moral.
Okay.
There's what is it called? Not justice. That's not the word I'm looking for. I guess I'm like the word I'm looking for. I'm describing it in my brain as like he has a responsibility to like the like almost consistency, I guess, because if this was another kid who isn't Jason, what would they do?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who's not the star?
So that's
Mhm.
fairness. What did you say? Fair. That has to do with
I
like
said like
being fair.
consistency, but I think fairness might be a
It's
better
fairness.
one.
Yeah, because yeah, would you do the same thing if it wasn't Jason?
Mhm.
Oh no, Alan, you froze, or is that me?
Oh no, she froze.
Alan froze. Okay. I got the document now, so that's good. We can still write.
That's really
Oh,
interesting.
she.
I'm back.
She
My
really
internet
froze.
all of a sudden just died.
Oh, oh, she just
Yes.
came back to life.
I've never had that happen to me before. Anywho, all right, we're on which virtues are relevant to our dilemma, unless we want to add some more
Let's see.
questions.
Yeah, I started looking. I have integrity, honesty, and fairness.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would say courage as well.
Yeah, the
Integrity.
courage to do the right thing.
Yeah. Even when you have a whole room of people who really care about sports.
Hmm.
Are different virtues in conflict? If so, which should be prioritized in this situation?
I don't know that they're in conflict. I think they're
Yeah.
in competition, like integrity and honesty. Like you want to do the right thing by the student, but you want to be honest and fair to the rules of the district and like residency requirements. So maybe that is a conflict. Oops.
What about justice?
What?
Justice. Like to do what is
For the
right?
kid,
Yeah.
I like just like for what let's I would say like what's right to the kid. He's worked so hard all these 4 years just to get booted to another
Right.
school.
And
And
he
if they've
was
had this many
getting,
games, it's probably second semester of his senior year anyway.
well, he was already getting like scholarship offers and everything.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, because it said that he had missed eight and then they won the next like 10 when he came back. So they're like 20 games in. They're two-thirds of the way through the season. So it's probably like February of his senior year.
Yeah, he was out of the 8 games and they lost 7 out of those 8. Yeah.
It's like watching the Bears last year.
Went on 10 games.
All right. Well, apparently there's a lot of possible stakeholders.
Oh, yeah, everyone's got their nose in it.
Student, principal, coach, board.
Athletic director, board member,
Or a
board.
board of directors.
Yeah, board of school directors. I was gonna say board members because I'm not used to
Yeah, it's probably school board,
saying.
unless it's a private school. No, that would make sense because then it doesn't matter where you live. Um, the colleges that are seeking to recruit him, the
Yeah,
recruiters, I guess.
maybe they'll take back the scholarships and stuff like that. So recruiter or recruiter
Yeah,
university
college
board?
recruiters.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Examine the emotions, interests, relationships, and perspectives of all stakeholders. So, our student, what is our kiddo's name? I can never.
Jason.
Jason. Okay. He wants to keep playing current team because
Because scholarships.
scholarships and continuing to play.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say like he probably thinks it's all unfair because he doesn't want like wouldn't he probably
sorry.
didn't choose to move.
Yeah, I guess my question, I mean, when you're moving mid-year, aren't you allowed to finish? No?
No.
Like the teammate.
Yeah, I would say that the community's like sole desire to win these basketball games is impacting their ability to like see reason with it.
Make rational and like, I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest, ethical decisions,
Right,
right?
right.
You said kind of wanting to win at all, any and all costs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then we kind of talked about it up here. So I know this is like values, virtues, and or beliefs. I mean, again, the principal is fearful of losing his job. That can highly impact decision making.
Yes, agreed.
Okay. Um, I think you said it in the first one too. So it's like we kind of overlapped with the first one and the second kind of bullet is that I do think he cares. He doesn't want to impact the student either. Like he is worried about the student's future, Jason's trajectory. If so I think he so ultimately, even though he doesn't want to lose his job, there is also playing in his mind. He's probably considering like not only could I lose my job, this student could be
Yeah, their future could
significantly
be really
impacted.
impacted by it. Yeah.
Um, Identify and focus on what's essential, ignore the noise. For me, the noise is that it has a long history of winning basketball
Yeah.
games.
Yeah. I feel like the noise is the community. Like you have
Hmm.
to look at, again, like you're violating the the code that is directly written. It's not allowed.
Okay. Is there any other noise with like the, because they didn't really elaborate on the student situation, which is probably why that was one of my questions, just what happened there. Does he have to ignore the noise? In theory, he has all this kind of, if you're talking about history or past experiences, if he's aware that the previous administrator lost their job, like I know that's noise to him, right? Like, does he have to kind of put that aside, kind of that idea of what happened and move forward? I don't know. That could be a stretch. I'm digging here.
I could see that as noise.
Dr. Spellman just has a poker face, and I can never know if I am on the right
That is
track.
a very good poker face too. She's perfected it. But I mean, it'd be that's noise that's very difficult to ignore,
Yeah, agreed.
but still noise because even though there's the potential of him losing his job, he still has to do the right thing.
Right. Um, so recognize and name biases. Hmm.
Mm. Is there that bias of like athletes and how athletes are given special treatment because of their athletic abilities and, you know, we tend to give them special privileges because of said athletic ability.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the biases. So special treatment for athletes for their skill set.
I don't know what other biases there would be.
I don't, yeah, I'm struggling with that one.
Yeah, I'm going back and rereading because it's not like obvious to me.
No.
Let's circle back because I feel like if we can keep talking,
Yeah.
um, the next one is, and I started thinking through it too. That's probably what interrupted my thought process, but determine players that own the moral issue. So I currently have administrators, right? They have
Yeah.
to make some
Yeah.
hard
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah. This
But
is
I also was thinking, I feel like Jason, I mean, we're not talking about a young man. Like Jason somewhat owns the moral issue too, because if he is living with his huge like Jason maybe and his family, like right? They are kind of they if we assume they have some knowledge of right of like the kind of the rules, like they are, I wonder, I'm curious what Jason would feel for this issue. Like he has a part in it, right? Like he could
yeah.
also say, no, I don't want to put my team or my coach or whoever in the position they're in. But again, I know that he has scholarships and such. But I don't know if you could also disagree with me. I didn't know if that was a bit of a stretch, but that kind of popped in my head when I was thinking about it.
No, I
Something. Okay. Yeah, so I do think that the option A, yeah, good job. Jason is removed.
Oops.
Option B would be allowing him to stay on, even though understanding that it's illegal and against the policy. And then option C.
This is just a thought.
Oh, I like that, right? A plea, because we did say, like, could he continue to have that eligibility? Okay.
Because I know sometimes, like, if you, like, for example, for our district, if you plea with the Board of Education, you can move high schools based off of many things. Like, there's been kids that move from north to east because of bullying, or this one girl moved all the way from Plainfield South, which is in like the southern part of Plainfield, to east because she had high discipline at South and her parents wanted her away from those kids that were there. I don't know. But like sometimes you can make a plea, but because it's state policy, that's why I don't think it's really the best option. But
And depending
you
on the
could
time
try.
frame, like the time frame, 'cause they want to
Hmm.
make playoffs, and I don't know how much time they would get in order to make that plea. Because,
Exactly.
right, so that's my only concern with that one. Um, are we putting in one of the options about the principal reaching out to college reps to have Jason be seen, his ability and to see like, okay, that
We
well,
can
I don't know
maybe
where
to
that
option
goes.
A because like that gun goes with it, you
Okay,
know.
Jason's removed from the t yes, state athletic policies, into the district. Okay. And then I'll say Principal Kurtz. Okay, I'll add that part in about Principal Kurtz.
We can
Support.
totally change like any of what I wrote. I just like based off what we were saying, I kind of just made something.
He'll continue to show support for Jason's um, ability and basketball talent by reaching out and encouraging college reps to
What you are.
Jason
Come
playing basketball at his new school. Yeah, it's interesting that we all like the decisiveness, like we all see this for what it is, and we all agree like this isn't wishy-washy. I feel like we all are on the same like agreement that this is pretty cut and dry. It's not
Yeah,
an
I
easy
think
one, but
personally, like I would go with option A.
yeah,
I mean, we can do a combo of option A and option C where like we have to tell them like, hey, we're gonna fight for this plea, see if
we
we
can.
can, but in the
But
meantime, he can't play
yeah,
and he's got to go to start transferring over to the next school.
yeah, I like that.
Don't they
But
just
he's
have two
ineligible.
games left?
Hmm?
What, Meredith?
Don't they just have two games left?
Is that it before the playoffs?
That's
Mm-hmm.
what it said.
Team begin-
You know, that's what's best for the student, but also like following the rules, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter if you're the best player. Everyone has to follow those rules. They're there for a reason. It is an integrity piece.
yeah. So otherwise, who's screwed is the principal. Poor guy,
I know.
because nobody wants to make the decision.
Community's going to be in an uproar. Fire the principal.
Then he exactly
Wrongful
because they
termination
didn't.
lawsuit.
Again, I'm not much when I was in high school, I didn't pay attention to all that, but I guess they fire, I guess, yeah.
Oh
Nowadays,
yeah, well, because
those sports
administrators
are so
are yearly
important.
contracts. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe they, that would mean that the school, the team, the coaches need to find a
Hmm.
better way to support the training.
Absolutely. If you're one player is out and that means everybody is losing, that doesn't mean that that coach is doing a good job. It means that you have one good player that knows what the hell he's
Yeah.
doing. So it's up to them to look at that coach and say, you're not doing your job if you guys can't win without him.
Right. Or maybe they need to develop more I don't know, practices or bring in somebody, something like that.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't know how you call that for high school.
I'm gonna use my perspective as a high school teacher here for that second one.
Yeah, I truly did not. I thought, yeah.
And so when we're looking at like what type of leadership,
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
it sounds really
Well, isn't
cheesy,
that
but
like
I would
it's
say
ethical
ethical
leadership,
leadership.
Ethical. Ethical.
Okay.
hands
I was
down.
like, it seems like almost too obvious to say what it
Yeah,
is. So then I
ethical.
was like, am I wrong? Transformational. uh,
I wrote that ethical.
yes, ethical leadership, right? Because we need to prioritize acting with integrity and being a good role model. Ugh, I
Ooh,
hear rain and wind outside.
yeah.
What leadership virtues and or character strengths does an ethical leader need to call upon in order to deal with this? Well, I'd say courage, definitely, because they need to be able to stand up for what is correct
Hmm.
as laid out, even though he had the athletic director. And who was the other one they were meeting with?
The
The
coach.
coach, Coach
The
Noah.
coach. The coach.
His
I know
friend he
thinking of
hired
the coach and the principal is like one and the same. I don't know why I keep thinking of
because
Yeah.
they're
that. Yeah,
friends.
and they both said, well, we want Jason to keep playing, but it's your job or your call.
Hmm. Well,
Right.
because if they know and don't say anything to the principal, then they're the ones that are gonna
Yeah.
get in trouble.
Yeah, then they're the
So
one who kept it.
Coach Noah's a really good friend, putting it on his buddy, the principal.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject for just a minute. So
Yeah.
it looks like you're in section 4.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I think some of the other groups are not quite as far. So when you're finished with the ethical dilemma, you are in your group for the the team project. So you could start that conversation, and but when everybody's finished, I'll call us all back, and then you can go back into your groups again. Okay.
Okay,
So just
thank
so
you.
you're not sitting idle. I mean, if you finish up, then I'll bring everybody back together just to share their 3 options and have a brief conversation about that. And then I'm going to put you all back into your team so you can work on your project. So, but if you finish early, take advantage of the time. Okay?
Dr. Spellman, is that the plan for a healthy and positive school environment or the vision for character education video?
No, it's the first one that you said for plan for healthy, and
Okay,
I think if you look at the
thank you.
syllabus, it's marked as a team project. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And make sure you explore the rubric and the samples that are there before you start anything.
Exceptions. You have to follow the rules, right? Rules and policies,
They're there for a
are in
reason.
place for a reason. Please. Again, going back to like being the adult is the role model too in these situations, like we can't have kids walking away thinking if you take the easy, God, I won't even tell you what I just thought if anybody else just saw my daughter just
Your
bending
daughter.
over. I'm like, are you dressed? God, okay. Okay. All right. Rules and policies are in place for a reason, and it's important to follow these. Just being modeling integrity and honesty for students as well as you're in this position as a coach. All that kind of captured. Is that good?
Mhm.
Okay. We kind of bopped around Dr. Spellman, but we finished, we think.
Oh, okay. All right. So here's what I've told one of the other groups. I'm doing a check on the third group. The group ahead of you is just about finished also. So if you think you've finished and you've got everything done, then you are together as a team as that are going to do the team project together. So take advantage of that time and start talking about it. I'm going to call all the groups up back when everybody's finished. We'll share our options, A, B, and C, have a little conversation, and then I'm going to put you back in your groups to keep working on your team project. That's the one about the safe and healthy, positive, safe and healthy school environment. But make sure you are looking at the rubric, make sure you're looking at some of the examples and the description. And then, that way, if you've got questions, I can help you with that. But take advantage of the time. And then I've got one more group to check on. So probably be calling you back soon, depending on how fast this next group is working. Okay?
Building.
He'll laugh at me when I give it to him.
Well, we have time. So how do we pick
So, Dr. Sloan, we're looking right now at the video rubric. Can we pretend that we work in the same school?
Sure.
And we're doing okay, because we're just saying like all of our things are vastly different.
high school, elementary,
high school,
Okay.
everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this, we're pretending that we are in the same place.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So you're
do
all
we
finished.
write?
You're all finished with.
Yes, we're finished with our ethical
Okay.
dilemma.
I'll probably be calling you
Yeah.
back in a couple of minutes. Okay. I'm just making a last minute check on each one. Okay.
Okay, so how could we reword that? That would be good, Meredith. So maybe if we look back at option B, so that so we could say allow Jason to stay at current school in hopes the basketball team makes the playoff. As long as maybe we have to kind of put as long as um Jason's mom um
Grant's youth coach, temporary guardianship or something like that.
Yeah, temporary guardianship.
Are you on phase 3?
Yes.
Yes.
Getting close?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The other two groups are finished. So I'm going to call you all back in about 5 minutes. Is that good?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Okay, lots of interesting conversations, and you went off in different directions. So, what I'd like to do now is, just I'm going to be able to read your documents that you're going to turn into me. Make sure that on the document, whoever sends it to me, make sure the names of the people in your group are at the top, and make sure you send it to me via email. But let's just compare your options A, B, and C, because that's where I think people were in very interesting directions. So if we take a look at, let's say Darlene, Gabriella, and Ellen, if one of you want to share your options A, B, and C.
Sorry, children
So
talking in here. Okay, so option A, was they both just ran into like right when I unmuted. Um, Option A is saying that we will continue to allow Jason to play. It's the end of almost end of his senior year, and it's kind of what the community athletic director coach want. Option B, we're saying to encourage Jason to play at his new school, since he's no longer eligible to play at our school. And we said option C would be he's ineligible to play at our school. So he's going to go to the other school. We're going to encourage him to play. And then we could say we could also reach out to those college recruiters that Jason's interested in playing for, explain the situation, the impact on him to try to get them to those games as well.
Okay. All right. Now we had Meredith, Sierra, and Isabel and Mary. What were your A, B, and C? Don't all jump in at once.
I know.
Who's got it pulled up? One of you guys?
I do.
Thank you.
So option A, we said Jason is removed from the team immediately per state athletic policies and transferred to the district of his primary residence. The principal will continue to show support for Jason's ability and basketball talent by reaching out and encouraging college reps to see Jason play basketball at his new school. Option B was allow Jason to stay at current school in hopes the basketball team makes the playoffs, as long as Jason's mom grants the youth coach temporary guardianship so that it is not illegal for Jason to continue to play for his current team. And C was write a plea to the state and or Board of Education to get a 1-year eligibility agreement in order to let Jason finish off the year and remain on the team despite him being out of district.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. And then we had Sarah, Beth, and Sarah, two Sarahs together.
Mm-hmm. I think we were similar, if I understood Ellen correctly. I think we're similar to Ellen's idea. So we were kind of simple in our explanations, but option A was, just, we know the truth. Jason will have to move to his new school district and play there. B, we said do nothing, hoping that, Jason staying on the team will win for the community. Or we kind of talked about C, which is what Ellen said, is come forward with the truth, and then support Jason in his transition to the new school and district, and hopefully advocate on his behalf, continue to be present and supportive. We talked about like reaching out to the colleges or recruiters, and we also did maybe add a caveat for option C if they could recruit some more players, because typically like one person shouldn't be the only one winning on the team. So that was our little addition, like maybe get out there. Find some more players to win the team.
Yeah,
For the
when
team.
there were 8 games that they lost because he was out. There's a common denominator there, right? Okay. Any comments or questions or thoughts about any of the other parts of the framework? Did it help you or hinder the process?
If the group doesn't mind me speaking on my Sarah and Beth jump into, and I don't know if this is what you're getting, kind of asking Dr. Spellman, but we talked about sometimes we struggle with these dilemmas because for our group at least, we don't want to speak for everybody else. It just felt so very black and white for us. Like it was it is not the regulation. You cannot continue to play the sports, or that's the guidelines or policy or school code, whatever the rule is. So it was hard for us to really think of something other than what we thought was the right decision, which was kind of follow these rules. But as we talked through it, we had a little bit more empathy for Jason and kind of the impact on his future, and so that was the thing that kind of tugged at our heartstrings. But ultimately, we still really stuck through to be an ethical and moral leader. You have to kind of follow the policies that are in place at the end of the day, and you have to be a model. That would be a good model opportunity for the rest of the team. Like you have to push through challenges, show integrity, and all that good stuff.
Good opportunity for, character to be caught, right? So
yeah,
some of these do come across as being very black and white, others don't. So yeah, depending on experiences and things. So did anything make a difference in your groups with the different perspectives were there? Was there anything there where like one person was able to share something that kind of sparked other people to think about it, or where you see the idea? Did you see the idea or the benefit of different perspectives?
Yes, I think within like the group that I was in, it was nice to hear somebody say like, well, could the mom try to get temporary like share like custodian, what did we say, an emergency what do we say, guardianship?
Yeah.
I didn't think of that at first, so it was nice to hear that perspective that somebody thought, well, maybe since mom did move to a neighboring district, but if he stays with the youth coach, as least if they make that kind of legitimate, that that can be an option. And then I also like, trying to appeal to the State Board of Education, but then considering is that going to be too timely in the time frame that they have for the games to make the playoffs? So it's a nice consideration, but we also have to factor in the time that's involved here in that situation. But it's nice to talk these things out and see where people's minds are going in order to satisfy what other people are hoping an outcome could be.
Yeah, as I was popping around and listening, there were a couple of times I picked up on conversations where people were talking about the principal's motivation as to which way he would go. Because there were some personal and professional kinds of things involved there between his friendship with the athletic director, and also the idea that, well, am I going to lose my job if it's not a winning team? Those kinds of things. So, yeah, I think sometimes it can be very helpful. Okay. So I'm going to put you back in your groups because now these are your groups for the assignment, the team project. The team project is something that, is kind of a culminating type of an activity because you're trying to be pulling together things that you've done throughout your coursework here. Because really what your goal is, regardless of what leadership position you do take or don't take, your goal is going to be to create a healthy and a positive environment. It's also one of the major NELP standards that, they emphasize for people that are preparing in leadership programs. And I think the idea here is that you can draw on a lot of experience. I know somebody asked, like, well, we're all in different schools and our schools are different. So should we focus on one school that is either one of the ones that, will take somebody's of our teams, or do we want to create kind of a pretend school? Those are things to think about. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think there's probably a lot that you did in other courses, and particularly in the Project 5 in the internship, where you did a lot of assessing and thinking about character education and how that changes things in the school. So there's no problem in terms of looking at that and taking information from different projects that you've already done and incorporating it as pieces. I think that the big thing that I would want you to think about is, one of the things is asking you to create or adapt some kinds of surveys. There's a lot of resources for that. But the other thing to remember too is that, it's think outside the box. Let's not all fall back to the five essentials or to the things that we always rely on, because we know I hear a lot of pro and con comments about things like that as well. So, what are other ways? You did some surveys, I think, in which class did you do it? It was in 620 where you had to do like culture types of surveys or surveys of the can't remember the name of the assignment. I haven't taught 620 in a while, but there are things that you've done in different courses that I think you can draw on, and some of the resources that you might find there. So it's 7:39. How about if I give you the next half hour till 8:10, and then at 8:10 we'll just regroup, go over a couple of little housekeeping things, and send you on your way tonight. Does that be fair enough? Okay. All right. So I will give you time. I won't bug you. I will be hanging in here. So if anybody has a question, I think you can send me a message, or one of you can pop back, or you can text me or whatever if you want me to come in your group. But I don't want to intrude while you're working. I want to truly give you this as your work time. Okay. Alan, remind me, I want to make sure that you have your school ID, because I did by process of elimination figure out which one was yours, but you didn't put the right school ID in there. So I'll
Oh
send
no,
actually, if you've got a pen
I
and
know. I
paper,
was looking under my notes for like, because I just have
if you've got pencil and paper, I can give it to you right now.
I got it. All right, what is it?
140-9511.
Because I had it written down as like NCC username or something and your ID. And so I was like, is that it? Is that what counts? And then
That's
I wrote
okay.
it
I
down, but
figured it out
okay,
by
thank you. You're so
process of elimination. There was only one that didn't match. So, okay. All right. So, welcome back. I hope that this was helpful to have time to talk with your two teammates and kind of set a plan for going forward. I can't promise that we'll have time every class to do this. So, take advantage of what you were able to do tonight. Um, Couple of things I wanted to emphasize with you. And I honestly, summer 2024 sounds like in my mind like it was so far away. So I don't remember if I did this exactly the same way when you were with me in 500. But I'm going to kind of share my screen and just kind of talk a little bit about the asynchronous activities. Um, so you've got down here. You know how it's organized with my great organizational skills here. So when you see all the asynchronous tasks, when you move in there to look at them, you'll see there are some resources there. You'll see that there's a video to watch. Okay, there's one video on vulnerability, but there are discussion questions here at the bottom. And so when we get together next week, it'll be a little bit different because we've got the panel first. They're coming on right at 5 o'clock. But when they're finished, then we will move into a discussion of the asynchronous activities. So I'll mix you up in different groups. But these questions here that are here for conversation, my request is that you take good notes on those as you are watching the videos. There's a video on vulnerability. There's also the video on the Brauner ecological systems. Lots of questions there to think about. So make sure that when you do take those notes, because it will be really important. There's also an article to read with some very specific questions from that. So when we get together next week, after the character educational panel, then at the middle of the evening, what we'll do is go into small groups, but I want you to have your notes from these three sections here to guide your conversation in your small groups. Not everyone will have to answer every question, but I think the better you do in terms of taking notes while you're watching these things and reading these articles. And if you've got other questions, comments, other than what I put here, these are just to be conversation starters. So I don't know if that's exactly the way I did it back in summer of 2024, but that's the way I've been doing it now for a while. And I think it's more productive than, doing discussion boards and things like that. The other thing I wanted to show you is that there are some new resources there. Let's see if I can get back. Yeah. So in here, I opened a few things. So there's Windows into Schools. This is something that if you want to look at as you're working on either your individual video or your team project, there's an article here that you can read. I did open up this presentation. It's a presentation that I've used sometimes on one of the character education kind of handbooks. And so if you want to dig a little bit different into, Marvin Berkowitz's work, it really is a whole way that he uses how character education can be dovetailed into your school improvement plan. So that's there for a resource for you. Um, and then I've got your group names there. So any questions about anything moving forward? No. Okay. So next week, we'll start with the guest speakers, then we'll move into the asynchronous materials for this week, and then we will go into our ethical dilemma. Remember that you're a week from this Sunday, you have one thing that just the research permission. I know some of you have already put that in there. That's due. And then the following Sunday will be your leadership dispositions and virtues. Also, with that one, make sure that you read and study the rubric. I don't want you to do as much work as you were doing back in 500, right? So you're going to do your virtues and you're going to do your dispositions, you're going to do your graphs. Make sure you've got the graphs from 500 next to the graphs for this time so you can compare and contrast. But instead of going into heavy reflections on every single virtue and every single section of the dispositions, what you'll do is, for instance, with the virtues, fortitude, you'll have your graphs from 500, you graph from this time. You'll have your description of what's happening in the graph. And then you'll do the next virtue, the next virtue. At the end of the virtues, do an overall kind of summary. What are your strengths and virtues? Where your growing edges still in virtues? And then do the same thing for the dispositions. And then when you get to the very end, an overall reflection on this entire exercise. Does that make sense? And so make sure that you take a good look at the samples. There's some really good samples there.
Can I ask a clarifying question? And I just briefly looked at a sample. For some
For
reason,
which?
for the, sorry, the leadership dispositions, the
Mhm.
now, is it like in my brain when I first looked, I was like, oh, I will make a copy of my existing 500 one and then incorporate my new graph. But you're saying it's kind of a whole new paper?
It's a whole new paper. Yeah. You can pull your graph from the last one, but
Okay.
what you're really going to be talking about here is the comparison. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did you look at any of you looked at one example briefly?
No, so like, yes. And I mean briefly, like visually, I was like, oh, okay, they must have just,
Yeah, no. No.
in the world of life, like sometimes you can make a Google, like I thought it was just Google Docs and make a copy and you can add it in. I know they had a compare contrast section and things like that, but I didn't know if it was like an add-on to our initial or it's a whole new paper because I some of those are incredibly long. So
Yeah.
that was where I thought, oh, they must be tagging on to the
Well, I
first
think,
one.
I think some of the beginning part maybe, is repeated, because a lot of people went into this talking about what the questionnaire is and all that kind of thing. But what you'll see is like they have what they did previous semester, what they did this time, and then, talking about what those two charts say, and then a summary of these kinds of things. What I want you to do is if you go back to if I can move you guys around so I can see. If you go back to the rubric, okay? So the rubric says, first of all, right away you get points for just, having the two surveys, right? Having the two graphs. The next one says you're going to do some, just the graphs, right? So you get points for getting it done, right? You get points for just doing your graphs, and then you just do an analysis of the graphs. So you're going to do fortitude, and you're going to do the graph for fortitude, and you're going to say this graph says this. It's just a verbal description of that. Then you're going to go to the next virtue and do that. And then you're going to do the next virtue and do that. And then for the fourth virtue, then you're going to do comparing and contrasting the virtues from the pre to the post. Does that make sense? And then you'll do the same thing for the dispositions and do a comparison of the pre-post for the dispositions and then a different reflection at the end. Am I making sense for you guys? In other words, you don't have to do a summary and a reflection for every virtue. You don't have to do a summary and a reflection for every dispositional graph. Does that make sense?
So you're just comparing your growth. That's really what the whole thing is, just growth.
Absolutely. That's it.
And then I'm assuming then we have to have the same admin rate us and the growth, or yeah, like
That's the ideal situation.
Yeah.
If you can have the same ones, if they're still there. Often that happens, that they're not there anymore. And then you would have to, bring in someone else. I've never really had anybody that I'm aware of that had to do all three new people. But, if you can access the people that you had before, that's the
I'm
nicest.
gonna have to do all new people because I'm at a totally different place.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, there we go. There's the number one time I've seen that. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, you will. Yeah, yeah, because you moved shortly after 500, right? Yeah, yeah. So you will be in a different situation. So that's okay. We'll work with it. The idea is to look at that. You'll still be able to look at what people thought of you in the summer of 24 and then compare it with what people think of you now. The idea is for you to look at how much you've grown and to see where where you've built on strengths, but to also see that you're not finished yet. So what are some of the areas that are still showing, I got some work to do on this as I move forward into a role. Does that make sense?
I have one more clarifying question. Are we summarizing both graphs? So we're taking the summary from our one from 500 and putting that in, or we're just summarizing the new graph, but incorporating both?
I think, the easiest thing to do would be to talk about what the first graph said and then what the second graph said, so you can see the difference. Does that make sense? Just keep it simple. So you can take the first graph and you can take the summary you wrote for the first graph, then put your new graph and the summary for that. Not the analysis, not the summary. I'm using the wrong terms. I'm going to confuse you.
So that we will have essentially two analysis. So fortitude from 2024, I'm making this up. Fortitude from 2026 in terms of the data analysis section, and then the compare contrast.
The
in
compare,
theory?
the compare contrast will,
That could be incorporated.
will be incorporated to after all the
Okay.
virtues. You can talk about, where you've seen the
Oh,
most growth, where you've
okay.
seen.
So fortitude, all those. And then at the end, you can have a compare contrast. Dispositions, compare contrast. Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And then
then
one big reflection.
and then at a very end, an overall reflection on this whole experience. Okay. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach me. You've got me on your cell phone, you've got me on email. So, and now I got you right on time. So I'll be happy to stay on as long as anyone's got questions, but it's 8:20. Oh, it's 8:21. Go. Bye.
Dr. Spellman, I have a question about next week.
Okay.
We have a PTA meeting in which we're planning our bingo night, and I am the tech person of bingo night. So I need to stay for that. It's right after school, but I wouldn't be able to get home by 5 o'clock. My question to you is it better for me to stay at school, jump out for the panel, leave school after the panel, and jump back in when I get home? So I would miss kind of that asynchronous talk, but I can
How far are you from home?
45 minutes.
45 minutes. I would go home and I'll record the panel, and that way you can get there because there'll just be a short section for question and answer at the end, but mostly they'll be talking about their journey. So you can watch that later.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would go home, get yourself settled, and then join us when you can. And I'll write a note right now to make sure I record.
Thank you. I'll also email you just to remind you as well.
Thank you, because I'll need that.
That's my typing. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Sierra, do you have a question?
Yeah. So I know you kind of talked about this with like is it I had three people originally. One of them no longer works at our school. The other two still do. I'm not they're not really like involved in what I teach anymore, I guess. Like one of them used to oversee my department, no longer does. He still is in his original title and all that. We don't really see each other throughout the day or really at all. And same with the other person was an instructional coach or is an instructional coach, but I haven't done any sort of cycles with her in the last 2 years. So I'm just wondering, like, are they still good people to ask? Like, should I still ask them to just kind of grade me on this?
But they can't, right? Because they haven't seen you in leadership positions.
Yeah.
So you're probably
Yeah.
going
I mean,
to.
like, I guess I take that back. One of them has because I'm on BLT and building leadership team. So the assistant principal still does see me in that light, but the instructional coach, I don't,
So I would
we don't
keep.
really cross paths at the building.
I would keep the AP and see if you can find one or two other people that can
Okay.
complete. Because you want people who, because remember, these are leadership virtues and leadership dispositions. So it's important for somebody that can speak to your leadership and growth.
Okay. So I'll keep the AP. Should I just like shoot for maybe getting one other person or try for two more?
I
I'm just
always
thinking for time purposes.
try for two and see what happens,
Okay.
But definitely somebody like, maybe your principal who's been working with you throughout the entire internship. I would definitely someone like that. And then
Okay.
if you can, if there's another department chair or if there's another person that you interact with in leadership positions that you feel you can do it. But that's
Okay.
really, it's your call. You have to have at least two others besides yourself. I always say
Right.
three because I'm afraid somebody's going to drop the ball and then you're kind of in a corner.
Definitely. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Hey, Isabel.
Hey,
You made it.
so
You made it pretty
I
quickly.
did.
Yeah.
I left it like I've talked, so it's the varsity team and this, so there is another coach. So I just talked to her. I'm like, is it okay if I leave at like 4:30 instead of leaving at 4:45? So that the extra 15 minutes like made a huge difference. So I'm gonna just do that. So I shouldn't, if anything, it's like 3 minutes late, if that's okay.